Hi everyone, we're going to make the best chocolate chip cookies today. I know chocolate chip cookies, anyone can make chocolate chip cookies, but there's actually a lot of science behind making the perfect chocolate chip cookie. So even if you follow your favorite recipe, the way you assemble the ingredients together and the order that you put them in your mixer will have a huge impact on the outcome of that cookie. So I will say up front a couple things. One is, I got this recipe from Serious Eats website. Kenji Lopez Alt is the head guy there. He has a book called The Food Lab, which is fantastic. He's, I think, as much a scientist as he is a cook. So I have to give props to that. That's where this recipe came from. He apparently made 1,500 cookies in testing all kinds of different combinations to come out with the right mixture, the right blend of everything in order to create a cookie that's soft and chewy in the middle and crispy around the edges. So if you don't like soft and chewy in the middle and crispy around the edges, then this might not be the recipe for you. Anyway, so I've got my handy dandy stand mixer. You could probably do this with, a hand mixer, but it's so much easier with the KitchenAid mixer. So what I have here, and I have a photo from above so that you can see, I have 225 grams, that's half a pound, 1 cup of brown butter. So I browned the butter and I have a little video that I'll show you how I did that. And then after the butter was browned, I let it cool and put it in the fridge. So you can see here, it's sort of the consistency of like spreadable, like peanut butter. Okay. So you don't want it hot. You want it to be you want it cool, sort of room temperature. If it's a little bit runnier than this, that's okay too, but you definitely don't want it any harder than this, okay? So there's our butter. Everything else is measured and weighed out already. We have 280 grams of all-purpose flour, and in here is also 2 teaspoons of kosher salt and 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda. That's another thing. Baking soda, baking powder, or a combination of both is going to yield a different texture of cookie. I prefer cookies that kind of spread out a little bit, so I don't like baking powder in my cookies. I like baking soda in my cookies, so that's what I'm using here. I'm also using 2 different kinds of sugar. We're using white sugar, 140 grams of white sugar, as well as 140 grams of dark brown sugar. So if you only have light brown sugar, that's okay, but dark brown is what I'm using in this. We're actually going to add the sugars in and completely different order. Sugar will only melt in the presence of a liquid like water. That water in this recipe is coming from eggs, specifically the egg white. So I have 2 eggs here that are at room temperature, and I also have 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. You don't have to use the best vanilla extract. I use Kirkland brand vanilla extract. It's totally fine. You can even use imitation vanilla extract. But the order that we're going to put these in is going to be really important. So we want the white sugar to go in with the eggs and with the vanilla, and that way the white sugar is going to dissolve. We're going to put the brown sugar in later, which means it's not going to dissolve as much. And those 2 things, when these cookies are baked, are going to make a big difference in the texture, because we want that combination of dissolved and undissolved sugar that creates that cragginess and that crunchiness and that chewiness in your cookies. So in goes my sugar. In go my eggs, and in goes my vanilla. I've got the whisk on, lock it in, and off it goes. This is going to take about 5 minutes. Okay, we're back. So now my eggs have finished whipping, and I'll just sort of show you what they look like. So they're not like super foamy. Oh, it says drip, drip, dripping. But what you want is that the eggs and sugar, you'll know that the sugar's dissolved. If you kind of go like this, you won't really feel any granules of sugar. So it's fully dissolved in here, which is what we're looking for, okay? So there's our eggs and sugar. I'm also going to swap out my balloon whisk And I'm going to put in my paddle attachment for the next part. And one of the things you'll notice is that this is actually kind of the opposite of what you normally see in things like cakes and cookies. Usually you beat the butter with the sugar and then add the eggs to that. But what happens is, as I mentioned, is that the sugar will not dissolve when mixed with the butter because there's just not enough liquid in the butter. And when we're talking about brown butter, there's actually no water in brown butter. And if you read the blog post that goes along with this, it explains it a little bit better. So next up, we're going to put in the brown sugar. I got this on low to start because I don't want things to go flying around. I'm just going to mix it a little bit more. The other thing I have is chopped chocolate, which I actually took one of those big bars of chocolate and chopped it up. You can use chocolate chips if you want. I like the craggy bits of like the different shapes and sizes of chocolate, and some on the bottom is actually almost like a shaving, so it's going to distribute itself through the cookies. So there we go. Turn that off. So now you can see this one. Okay, now it's starting to look a little bit more like cookie batter. Okay, it's quite thick. Put the butter. Now, once we add the flour, we don't want to mix it too much. We only want to mix it enough that it holds together and is mixed thoroughly, because if you beat it too much, it develops gluten in your cookie, which you don't want because that makes it more like a bread. We don't want that. So we want to add, I'm going to start by adding, say, half of the flour. It's about half. Keep in mind, this is the flour, the salt, and the baking soda. Just turn this on in little spurts. I don't want the flour to fly all over the place. Okay, I'm going to add my chocolate next. Now I'm going to add the rest of my flour until it's just mixed. Okay, there we go. Batter is just mixed. Okay, there's no bits of flour in there, but I haven't spent too much time. And you'll notice with the chocolate chips in here, you've got tiny little bits of chocolate chip and then bigger chunks of chocolate chip. Now, the hard part is you're now going to have to wait 24 hours until you bake them. I should have mentioned that off the top. The batter, when it sits in the fridge overnight, is going to really, the flavor is really going to develop. It just gives everything a chance to kind of all come together, and leaving it in the fridge overnight and baking your cookies tomorrow. I know it's a long time to wait, but if you do a little planning ahead of time, maybe you could make this like at night before the kids go to bed, and then you can bake them up the next morning. So you just want to leave it in the fridge overnight. So we will come back in 24 hours and bake some cookies.